I came home after a 26-hour nursing shift and saw a second refrigerator in my kitchen. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, said with a sneer, "That one's mine. From now on, buy your own groceries." She had labeled everything I'd bought with her name, forgetting that she and my son were living here without paying a single cent in rent. I had prepared a surprise that would make them cry later. That day, I had just finished 26 straight hours at the hospital. 26 hours of saving lives, holding trembling hands, cleaning wounds that weren't mine. My feet burned inside my once white shoes. My back ached as if someone had tied a knot around my spine. The smell of disinfectant still clung to my hands, and exhaustion seeped into my bones, the kind that comes only to a woman past 60. I was 67 years old and still working as a nurse, thinking the hardest years of my life were behind me. But I was wrong. When I opened the familiar kitchen door, the same one, where I had cooked birthday dinners for my son, scrubbed the floor 1,000 times, and cried all night, after my husband died, I froze. A shiny new refrigerator stood beside my old one. I stopped in the doorway, purse slipping off my shoulder, trying to make sense of it. They had bought a second fridge without even telling me why, though the old one worked perfectly fine. Then I heard Melissa's voice. "That's mine." She came out from the hallway, her face filled with disdain and boredom. Her eyes looked at me like I was an annoying fly in her house. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice hoarse after a day of speaking only to patients. "I said that refrigerator is mine," she said, crossing her arms and leaning against the doorframe. "From now on, buy your own food, Cheryl." She didn't call me Mom. She called me by my first name, as if we were just roommates. I opened my old refrigerator, and my breath caught in my throat. Everything I had bought 3 days ago, cheese, tomatoes, yogurt, beans, chicken, even butter was labeled with yellow stickers, each one marked Melissa in black marker. "What is this supposed to mean?" I whispered. "Like I said, it's my food. You should buy your own," she shrugged. "It's not fair that I have to share what I paid for." Her money? Melissa didn't even have a job. Since marrying my son Daniel 2 years ago, she hadn't worked a single day. Daniel was the one bringing in money, although lately, most of it came from what I lent them, for gas, groceries, emergencies. "Daniel," I called, and he appeared in the doorway, looking at me with unfamiliar eyes. The same eyes that once held love now showed only annoyance. "Mom, don't overreact," he said. "Melissa's right. Everyone should buy their own food. It's more organized that way." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. "But I bought all this. That's why your name's on it," Melissa said, pointing at the labels. "Now everyone knows what belongs to whom. Easier that way." I wanted to scream, to rip every yellow sticker off and throw them in her face, but I was too tired, too drained. I simply nodded, walked to my room, and shut the door. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I let the humiliation and pain sink in. They were living in my house, the house I bought with my nursing salary after my husband died, leaving me in debt with an 8-year-old boy who had chronic asthma. I'd worked double, even triple shifts to pay off the mortgage, mopped hospital floors at 3 a.m., and skipped meals so Daniel could afford his medication. And now they wanted me to pay for the right to eat in my own kitchen. I took off my shoes. My feet were swollen, the heel on my left one covered in blisters. From the living room came the sound of laughter. Melissa and Daniel were watching TV, the smell of buttered popcorn filling the air, the kind I wasn't allowed to touch because her priest's name was on it too. I closed my eyes. In the darkness and silence, something inside me began to shift. I didn't realize it then, but that night, the night of exhaustion and humiliation, was the last night I would ever let them treat me like a stranger in my own home. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's the calm before the storm. I thought those yellow stickers were the limit of their disrespect. But a few days later, I learned they were only the beginning of my descent into hell. 3 days after that, I came home from a 12-hour shift. A baby had died in my arms, and an old man had passed away while I was holding his hand. I wanted nothing more than a cup of hot tea and a bit of peace. But when I walked into the bathroom, I froze. Yellow stickers were everywhere on the shampoo, soap, toothpaste, even on the toilet paper rolls. Melissa's name was written on everything. I looked at my toothbrush, the only thing left unmarked, and realized it was the last object in this house that was still mine. I walked to the kitchen. Pots, pans, cups, dishes, everything had a label. I opened a drawer. Even the forks were tagged. Looking for something? Melissa's voice startled me from behind. "Melissa, this is too much," I said quietly. She tilted her head, smiling faintly. "I'm just protecting my belongings, Cheryl. You know how easily things get mixed up. This way everyone knows what's theirs. But I bought most of these things 20 years ago. Then you should have labeled them too," she replied. "I just marked what's mine." "And what exactly is yours?" The words came out colder than I meant them to. Her eyes darkened. "Watch your tone. I'm your son's wife. I deserve respect." Respect. That word echoed in my mind as she turned away, leaving the TV blaring behind her. That night, Melissa cooked dinner. The smell of chocolate chicken sauce filled the house, my favorite dish, the one I'd taught her how to make when she and Daniel first married. I stayed in my room. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since the hospital coffee. I almost stepped out to take a plate but stopped myself. Not anymore. Their laughter filled the air, and I heard them talking about a vacation in Florida. "When we sell Mom's car," Melissa said, "we'll have enough for the hotel," Daniel murmured. "I'm not sure I want to sell it." "Oh, come on. It's old, and she hardly uses it. We need it more than she does." I didn't hear his answer, but I knew he didn't defend me. The next morning I woke up early. It was my day off, and I planned to talk privately with Daniel. He was in the kitchen, drinking coffee from the machine now covered with a yellow sticker. "Son, I need to talk to you." He looked up, tired, older than his 32 years. "Mom, if this is about the labels, it's not just about those," I said, sitting across from him. "It's about how you two treat me. This is my house. I know that. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like it." I took a deep breath. "You two don't pay rent, utilities, or property taxes. And now I can't even use my own soap." He rubbed his face. "Mom, Melissa's my wife. I have to support her. If you don't like how she organizes things, maybe you should consider finding another place to live." The world stopped spinning. "Another place to live?" "I don't mean it in a bad way, but we're still young. We need space, privacy. We can't keep worrying about whether you're uncomfortable. This is my house, Daniel. I know it's legally yours, Mom, but Melissa and I live here too. Sometimes I think she's right, you're a bit old-fashioned. You don't understand how modern families work." I stood up without another word. In my room, I took a box from the closet, a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were photographs. Daniel, as a child holding his inhaler, his big, frightened eyes during an asthma attack. Daniel at his high school graduation. Daniel at church after the surgery that saved his life at 11. That surgery cost $28,000. I sold my car, went into debt, worked at 2 hospitals to pay it off. I touched those pictures, and for the first time, I felt no love, only coldness. My son had just told me to find somewhere else to live in the very house I bought with sweat and tears, through endless night shifts while he slept peacefully, believing his mother would always be there. I put the box away. That night, Melissa cooked again. The smell of pot roast filled the house, clawing at my empty stomach. I didn't go out. I lay in the dark, listening to their laughter, and began to plan. Nearly 40 years of nursing had taught me one thing: pain can't be cured by ignoring it. You heal it by removing what's rotten. And something in this house had already rotted to the core. 2 days. Later, I discovered something in Daniel's room that changed everything. Saturday morning, I was cleaning not because the house was dirty, but because I needed to feel like I still controlled something. They had gone out, saying they were looking at a new apartment. I didn't ask. I no longer cared. I cleaned the living room, then the bathroom. Finally, I stopped at Daniel's door. The room I'd painted blue when he was 8, once covered with football posters and later with rock bands. I walked in. The bed was unmade, clothes scattered everywhere, and Melissa's sickly sweet perfume drowned out the scent of my son. I began folding clothes, dusting, when I noticed the nightstand drawer slightly open. Sunlight caught something inside, glinting. I pulled the drawer open: papers, old receipts, photos of Melissa at the beach, in fancy restaurants, at bars all recent, while I was still lending them money for gas. Then I found a thick envelope labeled "Mom Important." Documents, in Daniel's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were the house ownership papers, documents that should have been locked in my filing cabinet. Beneath them lay a notarized loan agreement dated 2 years ago. Loan amount, $22,000. Borrower, Daniel Rogers. Lender, Cheryl Rogers. Purpose, auto parts business investment. I remembered it all. 2 years earlier, Daniel had come to me, full of excitement about a business opportunity. He said he only needed $22,000 to start. I had saved that money for 10 years, planning for retirement. But he was my only son. "I'll pay you back in 6 months, with interest," he promised. We signed before a notary, his idea, not mine. Then the venture failed. His partner disappeared with part of the money, and I never asked again, because a mother doesn't keep score with love. I looked deeper into the envelope. There were bank statements from the last 6 months, showing regular deposits between $900 and $1,200 into Daniel's account. If he didn't have a job, where did that money come from? At the bottom were printed text messages between Daniel and Melissa. "Melissa, I spoke with the real estate broker. He says the house in this area is worth about $300,000. Daniel, that's perfect." Melissa replied, "Exactly, my love. Your mom's getting old. She can't live forever, and when she's gone, who gets the house?" Daniel answered, "Me. I'm the only child." "Right," she wrote. "But why wait? Convince her to sell now. Tell her she should move somewhere smaller, easier to maintain. She can keep $100,000. We'll take $200,000 and start a new life far from here." Daniel hesitated. "I'm not sure. She'll be furious." "She'll calm down," Melissa replied. "What can she do? Kick us out? You're her son. She'd never let you end up on the street. We just have to treat her nicely for a few months, and she'll soften up," Daniel asked. "Treat her nicely?" Melissa laughed. "Just wait 2 months tops, and she'll beg us to help sell the house." The messages were dated 3 months ago. The yellow stickers had appeared 2 weeks later. The papers slipped from my hands as I sat on his bed, shaking not from fear but from anger. A fire rose from my stomach to my throat. They were pushing me out of my own home, step by step, with a plan so calculated it made my skin crawl, and my son, my own flesh and blood, was part of it. I grabbed my phone, took pictures of everything, the texts, the loan agreement, the bank statements, the deed, everything that shouldn't have been in that drawer. I put everything back exactly as it was, closed the drawer, left the room, and went to the kitchen. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my glass of water. I looked around the 2 refrigerators, the countless yellow labels, the house I had bought through sleepless nights, swollen feet from 12-hour shifts, and the loneliness of widowhood. And now, my son wanted to sell it to start a new life without me. I wiped away my tears before realizing I'd been crying. Something inside me broke at that moment, but not the way they wanted. I didn't collapse. I woke up. Forgiveness is one thing, foolishness is another. And I had been foolish long enough. I opened my phone and searched on Google, real estate eviction lawyer in Houston. Dozens of results popped up. I chose one attorney, Michael Lawson, highly rated, office downtown. I called. A secretary answered. Lawson Law Office, good afternoon. Hello, I said, my voice strangely calm. I need an urgent appointment. I want to evict someone from my house. A tenant? She asked. No, my son. There was a pause. I understand. When can you come in? Tomorrow, if possible. We have an opening at 11 a.m. I'll be there. I hung up just as I heard the front door open. We're back, Melissa called out in her falsely cheerful tone. Cheryl, are you cooking tonight? I took a deep breath, walked out of the kitchen, and smiled. What, you don't want me to make something? They both looked surprised. Sure, whatever, Daniel said. Good, I nodded. I'll make eggs. It'll be quick. They stared at me strangely, but I kept smiling. I had been silent for days, barely speaking or stepping out of my room, but that night I smiled because I knew something they didn't. In any war, the one who wins isn't the one who yells louder. It's the one who strikes when the enemy least expects it. That night I cooked dinner, set the table, and washed the dishes. Daniel and Melissa exchanged confused glances. Mom, are you okay? Daniel asked. I'm fine, son. I realized you were right. I've been too stressed. I'm sorry. Melissa smiled, smugly. Glad you understand, Cheryl. In the end, we all just want what's best for the family, right? Of course, I said, looking straight into her eyes. The best thing for the family. I went upstairs, locked my door, and slept soundly for the first time in weeks, because I knew the next morning the real battle would begin, and they didn't even know they'd already lost. The next day, I arrived at Attorney Lawson's office at exactly 11 a.m. The small room smelled of coffee and old paper. He was a serious man, but his eyes were kind. Tell me everything, Mrs. Rogers, he said. Take your time. I told him everything. The labels, the messages, the unpaid loan, the house deed in my name, all of it. He took notes, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he removed his glasses and looked at me. You have proof of all this. I have photos of the messages, a notarized loan agreement, and the property deed. The house is entirely in my name. They don't pay rent, don't cover any bills, electricity, water, gas, internet. I pay for everything. He nodded slowly. Legally, you have full right to evict them. This is your property. They have no contract, no payments. We call them unlawful occupants. But, he paused, they're your son and daughter-in-law. Are you absolutely sure? I was silent. I remembered the yellow stickers, the text messages about selling my house, Daniel's words telling me to find another place to live. "I'm sure," I said, "completely sure." "All right," he replied. "I'll need your signature on a power of attorney form. We'll begin the legal process. It'll take a few weeks, but we can move faster if they don't cooperate." He opened a file. "We can also claim the loan with interest estimated at around $35,000. The number made me dizzy. "That much?" "Compound interest, ma'am, and your son signed a legal agreement. You're entitled to collect." I signed the documents and paid $900 in legal fees, money I had saved for emergencies. And this was an emergency. I left the office with a strange feeling in my chest, like I had just jumped out of a plane, unsure if my parachute would open, but knowing there was no turning back. That evening I stopped by the supermarket, buying a few things just for myself, things I was ready to label if necessary. When I opened the front door, I heard voices coming from the living room. I froze. Melissa's parents, Richard and Carol, were sitting comfortably on my couch as if they owned the place. "Well, the mother-in-law's home," Carol said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Good evening," I replied softly. "Come, have a seat," Melissa said, pointing at the chair across from them. "My own living room." I sat down. "Look, Cheryl," Richard began, his deep voice steady. "We're all here because we need to discuss something. Important, something about family." "Family?" I asked. "Yes," he continued. "Melissa told us everything that's been going on. We understand it's been hard for you, but you need to be reasonable." "Reasonable about what?" I asked. Carol jumped in. "About living arrangements. This house is big, but 3 adults living together can be complicated. The kids need privacy, and well, you're in a different stage of life now." My blood boiled. "A different stage?" "Don't take it the wrong way," Richard said quickly. "We just think you should consider a few options." "What options?" I asked. Melissa leaned forward. "There are some wonderful senior communities nearby, Cheryl. They have nurses, activities, friends your age." "You mean a nursing home?" I asked coldly. "No, Mom," Daniel said quickly. "It's more like a retirement community, really nice just outside Houston. We already visited it." "You visited? Without telling me?" The room fell silent. "We wanted it to be a surprise," Melissa said with a grin, showing me photos on her phone, gray buildings, tiny rooms, elderly people in wheelchairs sitting outside. Looking at them, I saw myself there, waiting for the end. "And what about this house?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Daniel scratched his head. "We'll stay here. Maybe sell it later and buy something smaller, but that's for the future." "Right," I nodded. "The future. What matters," Carol said, "is that you'll be well taken care of. They can start their new life." "Who's going to pay for that community?" I asked. Silence filled the room. "You have your hospital pension," Melissa said. "And if you sell your car, you'll have enough for the first few months. Then we'll figure it out." "My car? The one I bought 5 years ago, the only thing I ever bought for myself?" My voice turned sharp. "If I sell my percentage? Car, how will I get to work?" "I still work, in case anyone forgot." "Oh, Cheryl," Carol sighed. "At your age, you should be resting, enjoying life." "I'm 67, not 80, I replied. "But you've been overworking yourself," Melissa said gently. "You're tired, getting sick more often. It's not good for you." I looked at Daniel. He avoided my eyes, staring at the floor. "Is that what you want, Daniel, for me to leave?" He looked up, guilt and shame flickering across his face. "Mom, We just want what's best for you. What's best for me or for you? I stood up. Don't start getting emotional again, Melissa snapped, rolling her eyes. It's not emotion, Melissa. It's a question. What do you gain if I leave? You'd get peace, she shot back. You'd get care, rest, and wouldn't have to maintain this huge house. The house I bought. Oh, here we go again. Always my house. Yes, it's yours, but your son lives here too. What are you going to throw us out? Melissa, calm down, Richard said. I can't calm down anymore, she yelled. I've had enough. Since moving in, I've tried to get along, but she keeps playing the victim. Everything has to be her way. Well, not anymore, Cheryl. You're not the only one living here. If you can't accept that, then yes, you should find another place. The room went silent. I turned to Daniel. Do you agree with her? He rubbed his face. Mom, I think Melissa's right. You can't control everything. Even if you bought this house, it's my home too. And if I want to live here with my wife, that's my right. Your right. My chest felt like it was cracking open. And what am I then? A burden? No one said that, Carol interjected. You don't have to say it, I understand. I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me, I heard Melissa whisper, There she goes again. She'll cool off by tomorrow. Then came laughter, soft, careless laughter. I went to my room, locked the door, and this time I cried for real. I cried for the son I raised, for the nights I stayed awake when he had a fever, for the 3 jobs I worked to pay his tuition, for every dollar I saved thinking of his future. I cried until there were no tears left. When I finally looked in the mirror, my eyes were swollen, my face pale, but in them, something had changed. Determination. I picked up my phone and texted Attorney Lawson, Do it. I want them out of my house as soon as possible. The reply came almost instantly. Understood, Mrs. Rogers. I'll file the eviction tomorrow. I put the phone down, lay in bed, and whispered into the dark, Forgive me, Daniel, but I can't save you from yourself anymore. 3 days later, Melissa's smile was gone forever. The next few days felt strange. I acted normal, too normal. I greeted them in the mornings, ate my breakfast alone, said nothing about the labels. I went to work, came home, and stayed in my room. Melissa started to get suspicious. I caught her frowning at me more than once, trying to figure out what had changed. Daniel avoided me, leaving early and coming home late. Good. Let them believe I had accepted my fate, that I'd obediently move into some senior community. But at night, while they slept, I watched, listened, and observed. I learned their routines. Melissa usually got up close to noon, showered in the main bathroom mine, which she had locked from the outside so I couldn't use it. Then she'd go out for hair appointments or coffee with friends, returning with shopping bags full of new clothes from brands I could never afford. Daniel left early, supposedly to look for work, but came back smelling of beer and cigarettes, eyes bloodshot. One Tuesday evening, while they were watching a movie in the living room, I quietly entered Daniel's room. This time I knew exactly what I was. Looking for. I opened the dresser drawers, nothing. I checked under the bed and found a few shoe boxes. I opened them one by one. In the third box, I found what I needed. Inside were updated bank statements through last month, showing regular deposits of about $900 every 2 weeks. Where was that money coming from? I kept digging and found receipts from fancy restaurants, bars, and even a Marriott hotel bill. A hotel? They lived here. Why would they need a hotel? Then I found a sealed envelope. Inside was a real estate flyer advertising luxury apartments prices starting at $160,000. One 3-bedroom apartment, priced around $185,000, was circled in red. At the bottom, in Melissa's handwriting, were the words, "Sell the old lady's house for about $300,000, give her $50,000, keep the remaining $130,000. Add $60,000 from the bank loan total, $190,000. Enough for the perfect apartment." Every number betrayed me, written in bright red ink, clear as a knife cut. I took photos of everything, the statements, the receipts, the flyer, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When I left the room, they were still watching TV, Melissa laughing at the screen. I went upstairs, uploaded all the photos to my computer, backed them up to the cloud, and did something I never thought I would contacted. Patricia, my coworker at the hospital, someone I'd worked with for over 15 years. She had known Daniel since he was little. "Patty, I need your help," I texted. "Do you know anyone who can trace the source of some bank deposits?" She replied immediately. "My cousin works as an accountant for the IRS. What do you need?" "I need to know if my son declared these deposits and where they came from. Send me the pictures. I'll check and let you know tomorrow." I sent her the photos of the bank statements. The next morning, during my break at the hospital, Patricia called. "Cheryl, your son's in trouble." "What do you mean?" "Those deposits came from a shell company that issues fake invoices. It's tax fraud. If the IRS finds out, he could face heavy fines or even prison." I froze. "Prison?" "Yes. This is serious. Your son is taking dirty money. Someone's using him to launder money or evade taxes, and if it blows up, he'll take the fall. He can't claim ignorance, his signature's on everything." I hung up, shaking all over. My son was involved in something criminal. That night, I planned to talk to him privately, but as soon as I entered the house, I heard arguing in the kitchen. "I told you to be more discreet." Daniel's voice was tense. "Don't talk to me like that," Melissa snapped. "It's not my fault your mother's so nosy. What did you say?" "Nothing. Just that I saw her holding my phone the other day." "I'm sure of it. I left it on the table before my shower, and when I came back, it wasn't in the same place." "You're being paranoid." "I'm not paranoid." "I can feel it. She knows something." Silence. What could she possibly know? Daniel asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know, but we need to act fast. Talk to her. Convince her to sell the house or transfer the title to you. The longer this drags on, the riskier it gets. I can't push her any further. She's already furious." "Then find a way." Melissa's voice turned icy. "If everything falls apart, I'm leaving. I didn't come here to live with your mother forever. You promised me a different life, an apartment, vacations, and now all I have are those stupid labels in a kitchen that's not even mine. I love you, Melissa. You know that. Love doesn't pay the bills." I backed away from the door, terrified they'd notice me. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs. Everything was clear now. The illegal money, the plan to sell the house, the pressure to make me leave it was all connected. I opened my laptop and started a new document listing every detail: dates, evidence, photos, every insult, every yellow sticker. All night I organized it like a medical report, turning pain into strategy. When morning came, I printed 3 copies, one for my lawyer, one to keep, and one as backup. I took a shower, put on my uniform, and brewed a cup of coffee. When I came downstairs, Daniel was already sitting there, his face tired, unshaven. "Good morning," I said softly. He looked at me, surprised. "Morning, Mom." I ate breakfast, toast, fruit, and black coffee. He kept staring at me. "Are you okay?" he asked. I'm fine. Why do you ask? I don't know. You look different. I smiled. I slept well, that's all. A lie because I hadn't closed my eyes all night. As I washed the dishes and got ready to leave. For work, he said. Mom, about that retirement home we talked about, you don't have to decide right away. I know, don't worry, I said, and walked out. I got in my car and called Attorney Lawson. This is Cheryl. I have more information. I think my son is involved in something illegal. I have evidence. Can you come to my office today? I'm on my way. I hung up and drove off, the morning sunlight warming my face, and for the first time in months, I felt strong again. I was no longer the foolish old woman who endured everything in the name of love. I was the lioness defending her territory, and no one pushes a lioness out of her den. But what was coming next would not only drive them out of my house, it would bring them to their knees. Thursday night, after a brutal 14-hour shift with 2 failed emergency cases, I came home exhausted. My body ached all over. I just wanted a shower and some sleep. The moment I opened the door, the smell hit. Me, roasted chicken, baked potatoes, rich and warm. I walked into the kitchen and froze. My refrigerator stood open, empty. On the floor beside the trash can was a black plastic bag filled with yogurt, cold cuts, cheese, tomatoes, and bread. The groceries I had bought just 2 days earlier. What is this? I whispered. Oh, you're back, Melissa said, walking in while wiping her hands with a paper towel. She was wearing a new designer blouse, the price tag still hanging. I had to throw your food away. You did what? It went bad. It smelled awful, and it was contaminating my fridge. You know, when food mixes, everything starts to stink. That food was fine. I just bought it. I smelled it. It was rotten, she said flatly. Besides, Cheryl, I already told you, if you want to store your food, buy your own fridge like I did. I stared at the trash bag, an entire week's worth of groceries. $40 gone. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet breaking, like a string pulled too tight for too long. Where's Daniel? I asked emptily. In the living room. Why? I didn't answer. I walked out and found my son sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to his phone, a beer in his hand, 3 empty bottles on the table. Daniel. He looked up. What is it, Mom? Your wife just threw out all my food. Oh, right. She said it had gone bad. It wasn't bad. I bought it 2 days ago. Mom, don't start again, he sighed. If Melissa said it was spoiled, then it was. She knows about those things better than you. Knows better? My voice trembled. I've been buying groceries for 40 years. You think I can't tell when something's bad? That's enough, he said, standing up unsteadily. You're always overreacting. Overreacting? I snapped. I lost $40 worth of food money I earned while you sit here drinking beer that I paid for. I didn't buy this beer. Melissa did. With what money? She doesn't have a job. That's none of your business. It is my business. You two live in my house, eat my food, use the water and electricity I pay for. Enough, he shouted. For the first time in years, my son screamed at me. I'm tired of everything always being about you. Your house, your money, your sacrifices. Yeah, you're a saint, the one who gave up everything we owe you our lives. I'm sick of that guilt. Each word cut through me like a knife. Daniel. No, Mom, I'm done. I didn't choose to be born. I didn't choose for Dad to die. That was your life, not mine. The room fell into heavy silence. Melissa stood in the doorway, a faint, victorious smile on her lips. I looked at the 32-year-old man before me, his red eyes, the stench of alcohol, and I didn't recognize him anymore. The little boy who once clung to my leg after nightmares, who brought me flowers on Mother's Day with his first paycheck, who cried on my shoulder after his first heartbreak. He was gone. All that was left was a stranger full of resentment. "All right," I said quietly, barely hearing my own voice. "All right." I turned, walked up the stairs, went into my room, and locked the door. This time I truly couldn't breathe, not because of my lungs, but because something deeper inside me had shut down. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling, and called my sister Laura, who lived in Dallas. We didn't see each other often, but we were always there when it mattered. "Cheryl, what's wrong?" she asked, alarmed. I broke down, sobbing, telling her everything, the labels, the messages, the loan, the food, Daniel's words. She listened silently. When I finished, Laura spoke firmly. "You need to kick them out. He's my son. He's an ungrateful man, and his wife is poison. If you don't act, they'll take everything and leave you with nothing." But no buts. I know you love him, but love doesn't mean blindness. Sometimes the only way to love someone is to let them fall. That's the only way they learn. I choked on my tears. I can't do that. Then prepare to lose everything, because that's exactly what's coming. She hung up. I sat alone in the dark, staring at my phone. For the first time in my life, a horrible thought crossed my mind. What if I just leave? Leave the house and go. Maybe it would be easier, less painful. I could rent a small room, work until retirement, and die quietly without destroying what was left of my family. But then I remembered. The day I bought this house, Daniel was 12. We had just survived 2 years in a terrible rental in a dangerous neighborhood. I had saved every dollar for 5 years. The day I signed the papers, I came home crying with joy. "Daniel," I said, "we have our own home now. No one can take it from us." He hugged me, smelling of soap and childhood, and said, "No one, Mom. No matter what happens, this house belongs to you and me." I opened my eyes. To me and my son. Not Melissa. Not her parents. No one else. Mine. I stood up, wiped my tears, opened the drawer, and pulled out the folder holding all my evidence, photos, documents, and the most important paper of all, the property deed I had taken back from Daniel's drawer. It bore my name, Cheryl Rogers, sole owner. I ran my fingers over the words. 40 years of work, 40 years of sacrifice, all in that piece of paper. No one would take it from me. I texted Attorney Lawson, "I need to meet you urgently tomorrow. Please speed up the process." He replied almost instantly, "What happened, Mrs. Rogers?" I typed back, "I'm done waiting. I want them out of my house by next week." "Understood. I'll have the paperwork ready first thing in the wide." Morning. I set my phone down and lay in bed. No more tears, only cold determination. My son thought I was weak, that I'd surrender. But he forgot one thing. Women who raise children alone, who work 3 jobs, who endure pain and still stand, we don't break. We transform. And when someone threatens what we love most, we become unstoppable. Daniel was about to relearn the lesson I taught him as a child. Every action has consequences. What I did that Saturday morning erased Melissa's smile forever. At 8 a.m. Friday morning, I sat across from Attorney Lawson. This time I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I was steady as stone. "Mrs. Rogers, I've prepared everything." he said, placing a stack of files on the table. "This is the eviction notice. This is the lawsuit for the unpaid loan totaling $35,000, including interest. And this," he added, holding another paper, "is a claim for emotional distress and unauthorized use of property, estimated at $8,000. "Emotional distress?" I asked. "You've endured psychological abuse in your own home, systematic humiliation. That has legal value." He looked at me seriously. "If this goes to court, you could win even more, but I must warn you it will be long, painful, and public." "How long?" I asked. "About 6 months, maybe a year." "I don't have a year," I said. "I need them out now." "Then we have another option," he said, leaning back. "We confront them directly. Show them all the evidence. Make it clear, either they leave voluntarily or we destroy them legally. With the proof you have, especially about the illegal money, your son could face prison time." The word prison tightened my chest. "I don't want him in prison." "I know," he said softly, "but he doesn't need to know that. Fear can be more powerful than the law. If he believes he could be arrested, he'll cooperate. If not, we proceed no mercy." He paused. "I know he's your son, but if you don't draw the line now, they'll ruin you, sell this house, and leave you homeless." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. "Do it, but I want to be there. I want to see their faces when they find out." "Are you sure?" "Completely." I signed everything: the eviction notice, the loan suit, the emotional distress claim. He placed them all in an envelope. "When do you want us to deliver the notice?" "Tomorrow. Saturday morning, when they're home, relaxed, unguarded." "All right," he nodded. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll come with a court officer. You'll be there?" "I'll be here." That evening I came home earlier than usual. Melissa was painting her nails in the living room, Daniel dozing on the couch, mouth open. "Hi," I said. "Hi," she replied coldly. I went upstairs not to hide but to prepare. I took an old suitcase from the closet and began packing. The things that mattered most: documents, photos, a few clothes, my hospital uniform. I wanted to protect what they couldn't touch, because after tomorrow morning, I didn't know what would happen. I slid the suitcase under the bed. Then I opened the jewelry box my mother had given me before she passed away. Inside were only a few items: a gold ring, a pair of wedding earrings, a thin necklace, and an old faded photo, my late husband, Robert, smiling as he held baby Daniel. I held the picture for a long time. "Forgive me," I whispered. "You told me to protect our son, but maybe protecting him now means letting him fall." I put the photo back and closed the box. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. No nightmares, no tears. The decision was made. Saturday morning, I woke at 7 a.m., showered, and put on my neatest outfit: black pants, a white blouse, closed-toe shoes. I brushed my hair, applied a touch of lipstick, and looked at myself in the day mirror. The woman staring back wasn't a tired nurse or a humiliated mother. She was Cheryl Rogers, the owner of this house, a woman who raised a child alone, saved lives, and would never be trampled again. I went downstairs, brewed coffee, made eggs, toasted bread. Daniel came down, eyes puffy. "What are you doing, Mom?" "Breakfast. Want some?" Sure." I served him a plate. He ate quietly, occasionally glancing at me. Melissa came down half an hour later, wearing a pink silk robe, face bare, looking younger, almost fragile. "Good morning," I said. "Morning," she answered warily. What's the occasion for this early breakfast? Nothing. I just wanted to cook something nice. I placed a plate in front of her. Sit down. She sat but didn't touch the food. What do you want, Cheryl? What do I want? Can't I cook for my family? You can, but it's weird. You haven't said a word for weeks, and now this. I smiled. Maybe I'm just tired of fighting. Daniel and Melissa exchanged suspicious looks. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Attorney Lawson. Mrs. Rogers, we're on our way. Good, I'll have the door open. I hung up. Who was that, Mom? Daniel asked. No one important. I'm expecting a delivery. I stood up and went to the door. 2 men stood there. Attorney Lawson in a gray suit and a court officer carrying a briefcase. Good morning, Mrs. Rogers. Good morning. Please, come in. They stepped inside. Daniel came out of the kitchen. Who are they? The lawyer spoke clearly. Good morning. I'm Attorney Michael Lawson. I'm here to notify Mr. Daniel Rogers and Mrs. Melissa Rogers of a lawsuit filed by Mrs. Rogers. The room fell silent. Melissa stepped out of the kitchen. A lawsuit? What are you talking about? The court officer opened the file. Daniel Rogers, you are hereby notified of 3 actions. First, you must vacate this house immediately. Second, you are being sued for failure to repay a notarized loan totaling $35,000. And third, you are being sued for emotional distress and unauthorized use of property, estimated at $8,000. Daniel's face went pale. Mom, what is this? Everything you see there, I said firmly, is the end. Melissa snatched the papers from the court officer's hand. Are you insane? You can't sue us. We're family. Family? I repeated, the word tasting as bitter as poison. What kind of family puts their name labels on my food? What kind of family plots to sell my house? What kind of family throws my groceries in the trash? Mom, wait, Daniel said, stepping forward. We can talk about this. There's nothing left to say, Daniel. You had hundreds of chances to treat me like your mother, but you chose to treat me like a stranger. That's not true. I love you. Love. Me? I laughed bitterly. Love me enough to let your wife convince me to sell my house? Love me enough to tell me to move out? Love me enough to scream in my face that you never wanted to be born? He stayed silent. The lawyer spoke firmly. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. If not, we'll proceed with a court-ordered eviction. Mr. Rogers, you have 30 days to respond to the loan lawsuit, or your assets will be seized. We have nowhere to go, Melissa shouted. That's not my client's problem, the lawyer replied coolly. You both have parents and options, but you no longer have the right to stay here. You miserable witch, Melissa screamed. A bitter old woman who won't let her son be happy. I met her gaze. No, I'm a woman who refuses to be disrespected in her own home. I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me came shouting, crying, begging. I closed my bedroom door, sat on the bed, and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I could really breathe because the weight on my shoulders had finally lifted. I was no longer their victim. I was their reckoning. 3 hours later, when they finally left, the house sank into heavy silence. I heard footsteps, doors slamming, Melissa's sobs, Daniel on the phone, and then nothing. I looked out the window. Their car was still in the driveway. I went downstairs. On the fridge, a note in Daniel's handwriting. Mom, we're going to Melissa's parents' house. We'll come back tomorrow to talk. Please Please think it over. We're family." I tore the note, crushed it in my hand, and threw it into the trash. Family, such an easy word when you want something. That afternoon I cleaned the house. I peeled off each yellow label one by one, anger and satisfaction swirling together. Every sticker I tore away felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity. I opened Melissa's fridge, emptied it, and dumped all her food into the trash. A dark sense of triumph rose in me. Now you know what it feels like, I thought. That night I locked my door and slept soundly. Sunday morning was gray. I got up early, made coffee, and waited. I knew they'd come back, and I was right. At 10 a.m., their car pulled into the driveway. All four of them, Daniel, Melissa, and her parents, Richard and Carol, marched inside. Richard led the way, his face red with rage. "Where is she?" he yelled. "I'm right here," I said, stepping out of the kitchen. He pointed at me. "Who do you think you are, suing my daughter? I'm the owner of this house, and your daughter is a manipulator." "My daughter doesn't manipulate anyone. You're the one who can't live in peace." "Mr. Richard," I said calmly, "your daughter put her name on my food, threw away my groceries, treated me like garbage. And you and your wife suggested I move into a retirement home so they could take over this house." No one ever said. "That," Carol interjected. "Oh, yes, you did. Right in this room 2 weeks ago. You said it was for my own good. We just wanted what's best for you," Carol insisted. "Selling my house is what's best for me? Shipping me off somewhere strange while keeping the rest for yourselves? Is that what you call good?" "This house is worth about $300,000, Melissa shouted. "We weren't going to leave you with nothing." "Right," I nodded. "You plan to leave me $50,000, exactly the number you wrote on that real estate flyer I found, where you calculated keeping $130,000 for yourselves." She went silent. "What flyer?" Daniel asked. "The one where your wife laid out her plan to steal $130,000 from your own mother's house." "It wasn't stealing," Melissa said quietly. "We were going to give you your share." "My share of my house? Do you even hear?" Richard stepped in. "Come on, Mrs. Rogers, we can settle this peacefully. There's no need for court. There's nothing left to settle." "Don't be stubborn," he barked. "If this goes to trial, everyone loses." "Not me," I said. "I have evidence texts, documents, witnesses. And there's one more thing I discovered this week." Daniel's face turned pale. "Mom, don't." I looked straight at Richard. "Your son-in-law is taking illegal payments from a shell company. It's tax fraud. If the authorities find out, he's going to prison." The room froze. "That's a lie," Melissa shouted, but her voice trembled. "No, I have the bank statements. A certified accountant confirmed it. If we go to court, it becomes public record." Daniel collapsed into a chair. "Mom, I didn't know. A friend asked me to sign some papers. I didn't realize it was illegal. But you signed, took the money, and spent it," I said, coldly. "At hotels, restaurants, on clothes for your wife while telling me you couldn't pay the electric bill." "Stop it!" Melissa screamed. "Quit playing the victim. You're the one destroying this family." "I'm not destroying anything," I said firmly. "You did that every label, every insult." "They were just labels. You're overreacting." "They weren't just labels," I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. "They were a message that I didn't matter anymore, that in my own home I was nothing, that everything I sacrificed meant nothing." The room fell into suffocating silence. "You have until Tuesday to leave," I said. "If not, the police and the court officers will come and throw your things out on the front lawn for the neighbors to see. "Mom, please," Daniel said, falling to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't do this. I'm your son, your only son." My heart ached, but I didn't move. "Exactly because you're my son, Daniel. Because I love you, that's why I have to do this." I leaned down, meeting his eyes. "All my life I've saved you from illness, from debt, from mistakes. But this time you have to face it yourself." Everything I'd ever done had taught my son that someone would always clean up the mess he made. "That's not true, Mom," he choked out. "Yes, it is, and you know it." I reached out and wiped his tears. "You're 32, unemployed, living off others. Your wife doesn't work either, and together you plan to sell my house just to keep avoiding responsibility. What kind of life is that?" He lowered his head. "It's the only life we knew, the life you allowed us to have. But it's over now." I stood up. "It's time for you to grow up, and if that means losing you, I'll accept it." Melissa screamed, "You're a monster!" "No," I said calmly. "I'm a mother who refuses to be used again." Richard stepped closer. "This isn't over. We'll hire lawyers and fight back." "Perfect," I said. "Mine's waiting. But let me make it clear. For every day you stay here past Tuesday, I'll charge you $120 in damages, plus the $35,000 from the unpaid loan and the $8,000 for emotional distress." "Do the math," Carol whispered. "You're heartless." "I used to have a heart," I said, "but you tore it apart. Now I only have self-respect, and that's something no one can take." I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me came shouting, crying, cursing. I entered my room, locked the door, sat on the bed, and the tears I'd held back for so long finally fell not from sadness, but from release. Because finally, I was free. But what happened Monday night made me see my son in a new light. Monday was the longest day of my life. I got to the hospital early for a 12-hour shift. I needed space, needed air. My coworkers could tell something was wrong. During my break, Patricia pulled me into the cafeteria. "Cheryl, you look exhausted. What happened?" "I did what you told me to do. I sued them. I forced them to leave." She hugged me. "You did the right thing." "Then why do I still feel so awful?" "Because he's your son," she said gently. "No matter what he's done, he's still your child. But sometimes letting go is the only way to help someone stand up again." I got home at 8 p.m. Daniel's car was gone. My heart pounded as I opened the door. The house was quiet, but something felt different. The living room was full of boxes, clothes folded neatly, furniture wrapped in newspaper. They were moving out. I went upstairs. Daniel's room was open. Melissa was packing a suitcase. She saw me and froze. "Happy now?" she said coldly. "We're leaving. That's what you wanted." "I only ever wanted respect," I replied. "That's not too much to ask." She gave a bitter laugh. "You're right. We're leaving, and I'll take your son so far away you'll never see him again. Daniel can decide his own life," I said. "Don't be so sure," she said, crossing her arms. "I know how to make him choose me over you." Her voice rose, sharp as glass. "You keep reminding him of everything you've done, everything you've sacrificed, like he owes you forever. Do you even realize what that does to him? It makes him believe that no matter what he does, it'll never be enough." I froze. "That's why he drinks, why he can't hold a job, because he's afraid of disappointing you, afraid he'll never measure up to the perfect woman you are, the strong, self-sufficient one who never needs anyone. You made him dependent, helpless, because if he grew up, you wouldn't be needed anymore. And you couldn't stand that." The ground felt like it was shaking beneath me. "Get out of my house," I whispered, my voice trembling but clear. Melissa brushed my shoulder as she passed. I stood still, breathing hard. She was right. In some way, she was right. This was partly my fault. I walked downstairs like a sleepwalker and sat at the kitchen table. Then the front door opened. Daniel came in alone. His eyes were red. "Mom, I need to talk to you." There's nothing left to say. "Please," he said hoarsely. "Just 5 minutes." I nodded without looking at him. He sat across from me. "Mom, you were right about everything. I'm useless, ungrateful, awful. I know." I stayed silent. "Melissa left me. She said if I didn't make you drop the lawsuit, she'd go." I told her I couldn't, and she actually left. Her parents picked her up. She said, when I became a real man, I could find her again. But as long as I lived off you, she wanted nothing to do with me. A strange mix of sadness and relief washed over me. "I'm sorry," Daniel continued. "Sorry for being weak. Sorry for yelling at you, for saying I didn't want to be born. That was the worst thing I've ever said. But I do want to be here because being your son is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I ruined it. Daniel, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "That money from the fake invoices, I knew it was wrong. Not at first, but later I did. I kept doing it anyway because it was easy, because it made money fast, because Melissa liked nice things. I wanted her to think I was successful. I'll pay it back. I don't know how yet, but I will. And I'll move out, not because you're kicking me out, but because it's the right thing to do. I need to take care of myself." He looked at me, eyes wet. "But Mom, can I stay 1 more week?" "Just 1 week, to find a job and a place to live. Then I'll go." I wanted to say no, that it was too late, but he was still my son. 1 week, I said, but on my terms. No drinking. You look for work every day. You pay rent at least $60. And you go to therapy. Therapy? Yes, because Melissa was right about one thing. You and I have things to fix, and we can't do it alone. He was quiet for a long moment. "Okay, I'll do it." I took out my phone and called Attorney Lawson. "I want to pause the loan case. Not cancel, just postpone." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. The eviction too. Pause it for 1 week." "Understood." I hung up. Daniel's tears fell. "Thank you, Mom." "Show me," I said. He nodded, stood, then turned back at the door. "Mom, why? After everything I've done, why give me another chance?" I felt warmth return to my chest. "Because that's what mothers do, son. Not because it's easy or fair, but because real love doesn't give up. It just refuses to be abused, and that's what you need to learn." He stood there, and for the first time in years, I saw light in his eyes, the same light I saw when he was a little boy, when he'd promised to protect me one day. That boy was still there, buried under guilt and mistakes. And for the first time, I felt hope. Not that everything would be perfect, but that it wasn't lost. The next 3 days were strange. Daniel kept his word. He woke up early, printed resumes, looked for work everywhere. I watched from a distance, and slowly, we started talking again. We didn't mention Melissa, or the labels, or the past, just simple conversations between two people. By Thursday, he brought good news. "Mom, I got a job at a hardware store. It's not much, but it's a start." I felt genuine pride. "That's great, son." That evening, we cooked dinner together. I made rice. He grilled chicken just like when he was a kid. As we ate, he said something that made my heart tighten. Mom, I found a small apartment downtown. Rent fits my paycheck. When do you move? Monday, if you're okay with it. You want to leave? I think I should. I need to learn to live on my own, pay my way, be responsible. I nodded, though it hurt. All right, but you can still come for Sunday dinners. He smiled, sad but sincere. Thanks, Mom. In that moment, I knew I was right. Letting go was the only way to help him learn to fly. But on Sunday morning, the day before he was set to move out, came the real ending for us both. The sunlight was bright. I heard him in the kitchen making coffee. I went downstairs. He stood by the window holding an envelope. "Good morning, Mom," he said. "I need to give you this." I opened it. Inside were crisp bills, $180. "What's this?" "It's what I owe you this week. $60 for rent and $120 as my first loan payment. Daniel, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His voice was steady. "You said I owe $35,000, including interest, right? I'll pay it back. I don't know how long it'll take, but I will." He pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "This is my repayment plan. I had an accountant help me calculate it. I can pay $180 a month. In 18 years, I'll have it all paid off." I looked at the paper, every figure and date neatly written. "Daniel, you'll be 50 by then." "I know, but that's my responsibility, and I'll keep my word. You taught me that debt must be repaid, and promises must be kept. I've broken too many before, but not this one." Tears filled my eyes. I hugged my son, and he hugged me back, just like he did when he was little, when he was scared, when he needed me. Only this time, he didn't need saving. He was standing on his own. He held me because he loved me, and that changed everything. That afternoon, I helped him pack his final boxes. As we folded clothes, he said, "Mom, you know what? Melissa texted me yesterday." I looked up. "What did she want?" "She asked if you'd drop the lawsuit." I told her no, that you were right, that I'd been an idiot. He gave a faint laugh. "She called me a loser, said I'd never amount to anything, and hoped I'd rot forever in your house." I simply said, "I'm sorry, son." "It's all right, Mom," he replied, looking at me. She was partly right. I was a loser, but I don't want to be one anymore. And if changing means losing her, then I accept that. I sat down on the bed. "Do you miss her?" "Sometimes," he sighed. "But what I miss more is how I felt about myself when I was with her. I thought I was successful, confident, but it was all fake. The money wasn't mine, the house wasn't mine, and that life wasn't mine either. Now I have a small apartment, a job that pays $360 bi-weekly, and a $35,000 debt. But at least," he smiled faintly, "it's my life for the first time in years." Pride filled my heart. "Your father would be proud too." His eyes turned red. "You really think so?" "Of course. Your father made many mistakes, but he always got back up and tried again. And that's exactly what you're doing." He wiped his eyes. "Can I be honest about something?" "Always. For years I was angry at you. Not all the time, but sometimes I felt you were too perfect. You were the great nurse, the perfect mom. You always did everything right. And I was always the one who needed help, who failed, who cost you money. When I met Melissa, I felt relief. She made me feel enough, like I didn't have to be perfect. But the truth is, she didn't love me. She loved what I could give her. And when I had nothing left to give, she left." I looked at him softly. "Not everyone is like that. If they were, I wouldn't have you. You could have given up on me, but you didn't. You gave me one last chance, and no one else would have. He hugged me again, and in that embrace were everything forgiveness, pain, love, and hope. By late afternoon, the small moving truck his friend rented arrived. It cost only $12 for the quick local help. We carried everything together: a disassembled bed, a few boxes of clothes, and some small furniture. Neighbors peeked through their windows. "Mrs." Maggie from next door came out. "He's moving out, Cheryl?" "Yes, Mrs. Maggie. He's getting his own place." "That's good. About time. A man's got to stand on his own 2 feet." She turned to Daniel. "Good luck, young man, and visit your mom often. She needs you." "I promise, Mrs. Maggie." When we finished loading, Daniel looked at the house. "This is where I grew up," he said quietly. "It's where I learned to walk, where I had nightmares and you comforted me, where I ate breakfast before school for 20 years. This house is my life story, and I'll miss it." "This house will still be here," I said. "And so will you. I know, but things will be different, and that's okay. That's what I need." He got into the truck. "See you Sunday, Mom. I'll make your favorite meal. Make chicken mole. Anything you want." He smiled, closed the door, and drove away. I stood on the sidewalk, watching until the truck disappeared around the corner. Then I cried, not from sadness, but from release. I had finally let my son go. Not because I didn't love him, but because I loved him enough to let him grow, even if it meant being alone. 6 months passed. I sat in the living room. The house was quiet, but it was a peaceful kind of quiet. Daniel still visited every Sunday, just as he'd promised. Sometimes he brought food, sometimes we cooked together. He told me about work, his co-workers, and how he was saving money. He'd already paid off $1,100 of his debt, bit by bit. Last week, he told me something that deeply moved me. "Mom, I met someone. Her name's Laura. She works at the bakery near my place. She's really kind." "What does Laura do?" "She works full-time and studies management at night. She wants to open her own bakery." He smiled. "What I like about her is that she has her own dreams. She doesn't need anyone to save her." "That's wonderful. I'd love to meet her. I'll bring her by soon, but I'm taking things slow now. I want to be sure about everything I do." That made me happier than anything else. 3 months ago, Melissa came back crying on the doorstep, saying she was sorry, that she still loved Daniel, begging for forgiveness. But Daniel said something I'll never forget. "You don't need my forgiveness. You taught me a lesson. Love isn't about putting name labels on a fridge or staying with someone out of habit. It's a choice you make every day. And you didn't choose. Me. You chose the house, the money, the comfort. When those were gone, so were you. So thank you, but no." She left in tears. Daniel came home and hugged me. "Thank you for not letting me repeat that mistake." "I didn't do anything," I said. "You did it yourself." "No, Mom. You taught me through every wound, every time you made me face the consequences. You taught me strength. Today is Sunday." I made chicken mole, Daniel's favorite, and invited Patricia and my sister Laura, who came from Ohio. Daniel arrived with Laura, a sweet young woman with gentle eyes and a warm smile. "Mom, this is Laura. It's so nice to meet you," I said. "Daniel has told me so much about you," she said sincerely. "I hope all good things. Only good things," I laughed. She looked at me. "He says you saved him not just when he was a kid, but even now." "I didn't save him. He saved himself." Daniel smiled. "No, Mom, you saved me by letting me fall. That fall is what woke me up. We had dinner, talked, and laughed. Sitting between my son and the people I love, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had done the right thing. I loved my son enough not to rescue him again, and in that act of tough love, I truly saved him. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the living room. No more sticky notes on the walls, no tension, no anger, just a home. The home I worked for, the one I defended with my dignity. And I realized something important. True worth isn't in what we own, but in what we refuse to let others take: our self-respect, our dignity, and our self-love. No one can take that away unless we let them. And I never will again. What about you? Have you ever had to learn to let go out of love? Share your thoughts in the comments, because maybe your story can reach someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe that every story carries a fid-day lesson about humanity, stay with me so we can keep listening, understanding, and growing through each story we share.